Welcome to I Need a Session. I'm Kim Wilson, your host. This is our very first episode, and I'm so excited. We have a robust show lined up for you. One of the reasons why I decided to name the show I Need a Session is because usually when people find out I am a psychotherapist, a common response is, "Girl, I need a session." I created this safe space for people to share, express, and release their stories. I believe every human being has a story that is connected to the healing of another human being. Our very first guest today is a powerhouse journalist, Jordyn Rolling. She is amazing in front of the camera and behind the camera. But first, leading us off is dancer performer Keith Reeves. He's doing what I call art therapy combined with music therapy. He is an amazing gem as well. Please welcome Keith Reeves as he performs Dream in Process.
In what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Meet Powerhouse Jordyn Rolling, a dynamic correspondent and producer for Billboard, NBC, and BET. Jordyn has worked closely with several outlets, including Vice Media, Time Incorporated, and CBS, to tell compelling stories. She has produced multiple acclaimed short documentaries on diverse topics. Jordyn is passionate about uplifting women and people of color, as well as mentoring underserved youth. Keep your eye on Jordyn. Her journalism skills are sharp in front and behind the camera. Simply put, this amazing gem is a powerhouse. Jordyn, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it's so important for us to stay connected, especially during these trying times. So I appreciate you for creating a safe space for us to communicate and connect on a deeper level. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I am just fascinated by who you are and all the work that you've done. She has a wonderful website. Tell them your website, Jordyn.
My website is jordynrolling.com. So just my first and last name.com. And of course, across social media. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it's all the same handle at Jordyn Rolling. And my name is Jordyn with a Y.
I want to know, Jordyn, how did you get with Billboard and get to be a correspondent with NBC, and you've done so many great things with BET as well?
My dad's a doctor. I thought that that's what I was going to do my entire life. I also played soccer competitively. So I went to college, played soccer in college, and at the time had decided medicine wasn't the route for me. And so I chose to be a sports agent. I knew athletics. I knew the sports world, something I've felt would be in my wheelhouse. So I was studying communications with a minor, or communications with a concentration in public relations, and I was minoring in business in college. And one summer, I randomly was looking for a job. It was my junior year of college, junior year of undergrad. And a friend of mine was working at a local radio station in Sacramento. It was 103.5 KHHM. And I asked if they were hiring for anything. And she told me they were hiring for promotions assistants, which was right in the realm of public relations, which is what I was studying. So I took the job, and the rest is history. They ended up needing to do overnights on air. And I was like, let me try. So that started my on-air career. And from there, I also became a co-host of a Look Live show based in Sacramento. It was a CBS produced show called Mark at the Movies. And it was me, basically, I was 21 years old, getting flown by the major movie studios to New York City and to Los Angeles. And I was sitting down with huge A-list stars like Will Smith, like Hugh Jackman. It was a pretty incredible experience. So from then I was like, okay, so this journalism thing might be something to pursue. I've always loved storytelling. As a kid, I was always either journaling or writing songs, pretending to be someone else, whether I'm like making up plays. So I applied to graduate school. After graduating from Cal State Sacramento, I applied to graduate school, and I got into New York University, NYU, for multimedia journalism. So picked up, left everything, and moved across the country to New York and went to grad school. From there, I started working right away, pretty much. Like 3 months into grad school, I landed my first on-air job here in New York. And I was producing content for AOL, USA Today, Time, doing like 60-second lifestyle segments. And that was really how I got my foot in the door in New York City. I graduated from grad school with a job offer for Al Roker. He has a production company called Al Roker Entertainment. So right out of grad school, I was the host and associate producer of a VC tech business startup news show. And from then, I was able to land a freelance gig hosting for BET. So I was on a show for BET called BET Breaks. And then from there, I was able to land another freelance job. I started as a fill-in host for the Hollywood Reporter. And the Hollywood Reporter's sister brand is Billboard. So I was filling in for the Hollywood Reporter, and I was also a host for BET. My show with Al Roker ended, so those two jobs that I was doing at the time. And on the side, I was also producing short documentaries. And Billboard, one day they happened. Oh, and I was also a correspondent for NBC. NBC Channel 4 here in New York City. We have a show called New York Live, and it's like lifestyle, entertainment. So I was doing those three jobs at the same time. So I was freelancing for BET, freelancing for the Hollywood Reporter, and freelancing for NBC. And the Hollywood Reporter's sister brand Billboard, they had a position open up to be the host and producer of Billboard News here in New York City. So I auditioned and I got the job, and the rest is history. So now I've been hosting and producing for Billboard for 2 years now, and I'm still in the NBC family. I don't do stuff as much because my schedule doesn't permit, but I'm still in the BET family, still in the NBC family.
Wow. I mean, there were so many AOLs, AOL, USA Today, Al Roker. My gosh. But, I want to go back to the very beginning of that when you talked about being in medical school. Your father was a doctor. So, for those college students who may be watching, a lot of times people struggle with making the switch. You go in from medical school because that has so much prestige connected to it. And especially if you're, there's something inside of you that wants to follow a family tradition or something like that. How was that decision for you to was that an easy thing to do, to say, you know what, I'm changing my major, I'm doing something different?
No, not at all. It was not an easy thing. I come from a family of medicine. My dad is obviously a surgeon and a microbiologist, virologist. My aunt, his little sister, is the chief of OB at a hospital in Texas. And their mother, my grandmother, she was a nurse in the Army. So I come from this, deeply rooted medicine family. And also we're a huge athletic family. My dad played football. His little brother played 9 years in the NFL. All of my siblings play sports. I played soccer, obviously, my entire life and went on to play in college. So for me, the arts, storytelling, that was never really something that was nurtured in my household. It was more like athletics, medicine. You're going to be a doctor. That's a guaranteed career. You're going to have money. You're going to play sport because that's going to get you a scholarship in school. So that was always the path that was kind of laid out for us growing up before we were able to make decisions for ourselves. So it was definitely something. I think when I made that decision, my parents were like, oh my God, like, we'll see, once you're 18 and you're away at college and you have the control over switching your major and doing whatever, it's out of their hands at that point. So I think I just, trusted my instincts and was just not afraid to disappoint them, or not maybe disappoint them, but just not afraid to, rock the boat. And I kind of like stood up for once in my life and was like, this is what I think I want to do. And I'm just going to explore it.
I trusted my gut. I trusted my instinct. A lot of times when we experience this inner conflict and we don't make great decisions and we find ourselves in dark places, sometimes it's because we did not trust our instinct. And we will beat ourselves up over that. And there are a lot of messages, negative messages that can go through the brain. So for you, I can hear that you come from success. Did you struggle with just the meaning of your success? And is your success as successful as you want it to be, or having everybody look at your success as, rating it? People will rate your success as 5-star, 3-star. Did you ever struggle with any of that?
Growing up, I think most of us can relate to this. When you're in the school growing up, your success is measured by your grades, right? So I have siblings, so I was able to kind of see what moves they made, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I was always a straight A student, while maybe one of my other siblings might have struggled. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself for, when you're measuring success with grades, I put a lot of pressure on myself because I was like, I want to be the best. I want to make my parents proud. I don't want them to be disappointed. And then as I transitioned into adulthood, it goes away from being like, I want to please my parents, to I want to please society. I want to please expectations that people might have of me and who I am and what kind of family I come from, or me being a former Division I athlete, or etc. And it doesn't really end, right? You're always trying to, I think most of us can say we care a little bit what people think. As I've gotten older, though, I've had to kind of sit in my decisions and realize whatever I do at the end of the day, it affects no one really but me. And so I have to be okay with not being successful in someone else's eyes, or making the wrong move in someone else's eyes. Again, going back to trusting your instincts, it's always, for me, I just try to follow my heart or follow my gut. And that's kind of, if it makes me feel good, then I feel successful.
If it makes me feel good, I feel successful. Now, by the time you're being flown to these sets with highly successful people, well-known people, just showing up in the room, that you have a right to be there. You've earned your right to be there. And you have relationships back at home with, well, I'm not sure if all your friends are famous or anything like that. So, just that balance when you are around celebrities all day and you're interviewing, and when you return to your network, what did you encounter any problems, like as you started to grow professionally with friends? Did you find yourself outgrowing friends? It's like, well, wait a minute. Did you experience any of that?
Absolutely. I think it's really hard for someone who would be deemed average or normal by society, right? I think it's hard for them to be friends with somebody who is in these inner circles or is around celebrities and not feel some type of envy. So I did have a lot of relationships early on in my career, friendships that ended because there was like a little bit of jealousy from friends, kind of not really understanding the lifestyle. But going back to what you said about feeling like I earned my place to be in these places, while that was happening and people were like, oh my God, Jordyn's doing this, or she was seen with this person. For me, I always felt, that imposter syndrome. I was always like, I'm literally a small town girl from Utah. How the hell did I make it into these circles? And that's something that I struggled with for a very long time. But the more I wish people could understand and really grasp the concept that celebrities are normal people. Okay. Like they do the same stuff you do. They grocery shop, they, do number twos on the toilet. Like they are literally normal people. And so the more that I was exposed to that, the more my perception of what celebrity is, the more that changed. So now, while I do have many friends who are considered celebrities, I don't see them that way. I see them as normal people. I think this view of celebrity, it comes down to like influence and following fans. And I think that that's so beautiful because they're known for their artistry. But when you get them to know them on a human level, they're just normal people. And that's how I want us all to view each other. And I wish this idea of celebrity wasn't so like provocative, right? I hate that. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, for a minute there, I didn't think that I belonged in these spaces. But now that I'm here, I'm just trying to make everyone realize like it's not that cool.
Two words stood out for me: jealousy and envy. How did you even deal with that? And did you think to yourself, no, that couldn't be it? And there was somebody, who's very close to you, maybe like a cousin or somebody who's known you forever, and they're saying, Jordyn, they're jealous. You know, how did you even manage that and was able to call that what it is and be able to say, it's time for this friendship to end. It's time for this relationship to end.
So when I was still living in California before I even moved to New York, the early friendships are about like, those were more based off of, I think, jealousy and envy, maybe because of the opportunities I had and maybe because of my looks a little bit. But as I transitioned into being in New York, those, you kind of pick them out really quickly. People or girls in particular that want to be around you because of maybe, the parties you can bring them to, or, the circles, the celebrities you can introduce them to. And it's really easy to see because they're very one-sided friendships, right? Like when you hang out with someone and all they do is talk about themselves, or, they're really easy to pick out. So for me, it was a matter of trial and error, obviously. I've had some close girlfriends who, now that I look back, I would consider them just like more like social friends because they were never really there for me on an emotional level that I feel like real relationships are rooted in. So it was just obviously growth. Like you have to grow and figure it all out by making mistakes. And it's great because you hope that you'll have friendships that last forever, but that's kind of the name of the game, I think, in entertainment. And when you choose that life, you're always going to be wondering what people's intentions are with you.
I want to make sure that people, they get this nugget because it's very important to pay attention. Usually if you pay attention, you will get what you need. And what you just said, if you are with somebody and they're always talking about themselves, there's your information, just even that alone, especially when you just meet somebody, just paying attention to that particular characteristic in that person, that helps you to make a beautiful decision. So one of the things that just stood out for me too, and when you said because of my looks, and I want to just kind of pivot a little bit because I do know in the Black community, if your skin tone is dark, there's a certain perception. If your skin tone is light, and then we deal with this whole colorism thing. For you, coming from Utah and moving to California, moving to New York and working your way up, did you have to deal with any of that?
It's really interesting. Like my childhood in Utah was very tricky. I grew up with a lot of identity issues because me and my sisters were the only people in our town, and we're mixed. So like my dad was the only like full Black person I was around. And so that always kind of played with my identity and my confidence growing up. And then as I got into these professional spaces, early on, you realize, while I'm not, and I totally am, I'm one of those people who thinks that there needs to be more representation across the board of people of all shades. It doesn't matter. I think that everyone needs to have a place and it needs to be equal. And that equity is what we talk about, right? Like I want that for everyone. But I found early on, I would be pinned as the Black girl. So like whenever I worked on shows outside of BET, I would fill a space. I would be the Black girl, the casted Black girl. Then there may be like another white person or a Latin person. They're always trying to fill roles in entertainment, right? It's always about casting the right balance to represent who you think your audience will be. So I always had that pressure of being the Black person, and I know that could be very controversial to darker skinned women because it's like, what about us? And I always felt that. And then it's like reversely, when I was at BET, I would get comments from people like, Jordyn's like a Black girl from Canada. And it was because of me being from Utah, maybe the way I speak, and probably because I am mixed, right? Like, so I've always struggled with my identity. And I think a lot of that has to do with me being biracial and having that be such a huge factor. But now I think at the time when I was younger, I was still trying to figure out who I was, leading into high school, college, still trying to figure out like who I was, how I identify. And now I'm at this place, I'm 28 years old. Now I'm at this place where I'm just like, I don't really care like what people want to put onto me. I know how I feel, and I know what I want to represent. And that is like, I consider myself a Black woman. I represent Black women, I think, in a positive way. And I fight for Black women of all shades. And that to me is the most important thing.
That's why I want to go right there, because there are a lot of people who will watch this and they didn't even know to kind of have the language to say, yes, I struggle with identity issues. Because you said what you just said, they're going to say, oh, that's what it is, identity. Like, how did you even get to this space to say, well, I know what I want? Because I heard that I know. So that's where the healing space is. That's how you know you've arrived. So how did you get from having these identity issues to kind of being able to say solidly, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I need?
Growing up, I was always someone that didn't really quite fit in, right? And you always can feel it. Like I was a lot of white kids. I went to school with white kids. So I never felt like I belonged. And then in college, you get exposed to more people, more diversity. So then I was exposed to way more Black people. And I was like, this feels like home. This feels more comfortable. Like now I feel like I don't have to mask who I am or my personality traits that people would deem certain stereotypes, or I was able to just kind of let that naturally come out. And it's always a balance, right? Because people talk about code switching in the workplace, et cetera. Like that was my entire life, was code switching, right? So as I got older, it was more about just like, again, trusting your instinct and being like acting this way to please someone, or acting a way that I think is what's more palpable in this certain social situation or setting. It started to feel wrong, right? I wanted to be true to myself. So it was kind of just a matter of finding your tribe as you get older and like realizing what people you relate to the most, what people you feel safest with, what people, just that in general. It's just kind of growing into it and realizing, my childhood where I always felt like I stood out. It was because I wasn't supposed to fit into that group, right? I was supposed to fit in the Black community, which was where I really kind of came into my own.
Yeah. As you were talking, what came up for me, it's like, I'm not apologizing. If I am adjusting, code switching, listen, I'm working and I'm not apologizing for anything. I am who I am. Yeah. I love that. I don't know what it feels like to be a size 3 or size 4 or anything like that. I've always identified, as a round person. I've never walked into a room full of big people in my life. If somebody was to walk into a room full of big people, people, you just start looking around thinking, well, what is this? Even when I went to Weight Watchers, everybody was skinny. Jordyn, I've always known what it felt like to be inside of my own skin. And I just think it's so wonderful when a person arrives at this place when you are comfortable in your own skin. And it's so liberating when you can lift your voice and say what you need and what you want. You're 28 years old, Jordyn. You have been around celebrities and, you've had these amazing jobs. I mean, is it difficult to date, or has it been difficult to date?
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. My earliest relationships, like I had a high school boyfriend my senior year of high school. I dated people in college, and then you move into a space where you're around these influential, also intimidating people. And I think that can make you seem intimidating to men, right? So I don't think men in general want a woman that's style or not smart or whatever. But I think that strong, intelligent women are intimidating to a lot of men. And so for me, especially young boys, let's say, right? Like when you're a young guy in your 20s, you're not really a man yet, I feel. So for me, it was like having to dumb myself down. Ooh. Or like, be somebody I wasn't to make you feel more secure in like whatever phase of your life you're in. That was a lot of it for me. Like a lot of my early relationships were me having to try to make myself feel small to help boost his ego. And I'm at this place now, I've been through some really rough, rocky relationships. And now it's like, again, going back to being unapologetic. I'm just like, I don't want to change for anyone, not for coworkers or a corporate space, not for a romantic partner. That's not where I'm at anymore. Like I want health and wealth, and I'm sticking to that. So yeah, it's definitely tough when you're a smart woman, and also it can be intimidating for a man when you're around, celebrities who have money. And I've also dated people that were in that circle, right? It's just relationships are tricky, right? In general, it doesn't matter if you're dating normal, average, or someone who's a celebrity. It's all tricky across the board. But for me, I think the biggest lesson throughout it all was to never make myself smaller, just to shine and be exactly who I am, and the right person will come along.
When you think about who you were even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, dating, and when, somebody showed up in your life, could you see, well, really what comes up for me is the word insecurity. When I hear intimidation, I see insecurity attached right next to it. When you were dating back then, and if somebody you saw that intimidation factor, did you even know what you wanted inside of a guy?
I moved to New York knowing no one. So it was very easy for me to be kind of preyed upon or like taken advantage of, because like, for example, like one of my first relationship here in New York ended up being a very long, tumultuous one. And I didn't know what I was getting into. I felt comfortable in that relationship. And in the end, obviously, it ended up being completely toxic and wrong. But I didn't know what I was getting into. And I think that person did know that I was kind of this vulnerable, fresh off the boat, new, doe-eyed Jordyn Rolling in New York City. So I think I was like preyed upon in that sense. But it takes like an awakening all of a sudden, right? For you to be like, how did I get here? And how do I get out of this situation? And I kind of had one of those like aha moments where I was like, this is not what I want for my life. And also, you're viewed as this like strong, amazing woman by so many other people. But how did I not, am I really representing that to other people when I myself behind closed doors am letting something that's so unhealthy for me continue on? That was like the hardest part for me, I think.
There are a couple of little nuggets in there, and I don't want people to miss this. One, that whole awakening thing. So, when we walk around, I'm always thinking about tools. When we walk around with self-awareness, paying attention to what we feel, what we think, what we experience inside, that certainly can help us to take a step back and make some adjustments. The other word that really stood out for me is when you said preyed upon. Well, that phrase, people who have hidden agendas or people who are manipulators or controlling or something like that, they know exactly what they are looking for. And for you in your mind, you're thinking, oh, wow, this is nice, but this person, like you said, they already knew they were preying upon you. But I think one of the things that stand out for me, usually when you get out of that situation, there's usually a support group. There's if it's one person or somebody where you can trust and you can confide in or feel good about sharing information so you can take a step forward. Do you feel like that was key for you? You had that?
I had that while I was in the relationship, but you ignore it, right? People telling you like, this isn't the right situation for you. Like, why do you go through this? You're crying again. But you don't really listen to it. In the end, regardless of what support I had, it was something that I had to do on my own. I had to make a decision for myself, but coming out of it, having that support was absolutely crucial. Like for me, having a therapist, I think is the easiest part because you feel no judgment, right? From like your peers, your family members. So having a therapist was something that I found completely helpful, whether it was to feel affirmed and validated or to be held accountable for my own actions and my own wrongdoings. But also definitely having a good local support, like having people that I could run and hang out with. I mean, not now, right? But having people I could go run and see or hop on FaceTime with, that was very important for me to not kind of relapse, right?
But you just gave some nuggets in there. And that's why we are sitting inside of this show called I Need a Session. I just heard one, I saw a therapist. That's your tool. That's your resource. And just even being able to be inside of this non-judgmental zone. Two things we don't like as human beings. We don't want to be judged, and we do not like to look stupid. We have a big issue with that. So just connecting with that safe space. And when I heard her use words like affirmed and being validated and being held accountable, that's where we want to be. And that is the thing that creates a shift. I want you all to get right here in this moment. At any given moment, we are always more than just anything. Professionally, yes, I am a counselor, but at any given moment, I can be a podcaster, a TV host, I can be a cook. And Miss Jordyn here, at any given moment, she can be a director, she can be a filmmaker. It's all there. I mean, it's there. I mean, so much is inside of her. And the thing is, I want you to see that in her, but I want you to see it in you too. She is a self-starter. She is a self-motivator. Those are those qualities that take you there. So when you listen to this show, when you sit inside of it, I want you to get up and make a plan. If you have not made a plan, and say, yes, I don't want to be Jordyn. I want to rock and roll inside of that strength that Jordyn has.
Thank you so much for having me, and for everyone that's watching. Like Ms. Kim said, anything you want to do in life is possible. I'm a willing testament to that. So shoot for the stars, never give up, and love yourself. Give yourself grace and love yourself hard.
Jordyn, thank you so much for joining me. Listen, if anybody has not told you today, let me be the first. You are amazing. I certainly believe in why settle for okay when amazing is always an option.